The history of Beatles pressings is long and complex. Entire books have been written about it. In this video, I'll demystify some of it and show you some fantastic options for your collection. Today's episode is sponsored by Me On Records. Keep watching to find out how you're gonna save 10% the next time you make a purchase from Me On Records. Truly my favorite place to buy vinyl. All right, let's jump right in. Today, I'm focusing in on the Revolver album. If this goes well, maybe we'll make a series out of it. Let me know what album you'd like me to compare next. Maybe US versus UK versus Japanese pressing. Just say the word and I'll make it happen. In this video, I'm covering the pre-1980s Japanese Revolver pressings. These records come in 3 flavors. First, we have the Odeon series or the OP series. Then you have the AP series and the EAS series. Each of these records is a first version of each of the series. This is a first press Odeon, which is the first Japanese pressing of Revolver from 1966. This is the first AP pressing from 1969, and this is the first EAS series from 1976. I spent the last 24 hours listening to these records and making copious notes for each of them. My goal today is to offer you my opinion about which one I prefer most and whether you should consider pulling out your wallet for either of the other two. Okay, let's start with why you might want to consider Japanese Beatles vinyl in the first place. Some people believe, myself included, that the vinyl used to produce these records is superior to other regions, resulting in quieter and more consistently pressed records. The covers and inserts, which I'm going to show you in great detail, are considered superior, and some people prefer the mix of some Japanese pressings. I think it's particularly important in this video to tell you that I'm giving my opinion when reviewing these records. I normally assume that that goes without saying, and there are as many opinions about what sounds good as there are people with ears. Having said that, I'm gonna review these records as objectively as I can. Another thing that people love about Japanese vinyl is the obi strip. For people that don't know, obi literally means belt. None of my copies of Revolver include an obi strip, so in case you don't know what I'm talking about, this is an obi strip right here. It usually gives some detail about the album, includes the price, and records that include an obi can generally fetch a premium because they're very fragile and oftentimes have either been destroyed or thrown out. Without getting too deep into the catalog numbers, just know that each of these records either starts with an EAS, an AP, or an OP in the case of the Odeons. Okay, let's travel back in time, beginning with the EAS series from 1976. Many people love the EAS series. Again, the Revolver EAS debuted in 1976. This is the one that I've had and listened to for over 5 years now. And like some others, my opinion has been that this sounds great. I have been perfectly happy with this record and I didn't really see a need to upgrade it. The EAS Revolver comes in a very typical sleeve or jacket. You can see it there. It's not overly glossy, although it's not matte either. It came with a black inner sleeve. It came with a bilingual lyric sheet with photos and Japanese liner notes. And it has Apple labels on black vinyl. If there's one problem some people have with Japanese vinyl, it's that the top end can tend to be a little hot and the low end can tend to recede into the background a little bit. And while that's not a hard, fast rule, it is certainly true with this record, at least on side 1. At times, the guitars, which seem to have their treble cranked up to 11, can tend to get a little fatiguing on the ears. If I'm being 100% honest, with my levels all set to 0, this record can be a bit shrill. The most present part of the mix is going to be the vocals, the guitars, and other high register instruments. While the drums and bass are there, they're very quiet. My overall takeaway from side 1 is that it's just a very fatiguing listen. I don't know how I didn't notice it before. All I can say is that for this session, I'm listening very intentionally and critically, so that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Side 2, however, is a little different story. Good Day Sunshine has some lower register piano, which sounds great. There's an improvement in the drums, and overall the mix is just more listenable. And as side 2 continues, for some reason it's just less fatiguing and the bass and drums seem a little more present. For my money, Dr. Robert may be the most well-mixed tune on this record. It's just better balanced than the rest of the music on this EAS pressing. Having said that, the mix is clear and distortion free. I just think I have to agree with the popular opinion on this one, that is, it is pretty top heavy, just meaning that the high frequencies are dominant in the mix. Although side 2 is better for whatever reason. As for value, at the time of this recording, the cost of an EAS Series Revolver in VG Plus runs from about $30 and up. Okay, now for the AP series. The funny thing about the AP series is that if you just looked at the Hoffman forums and the Discogs reviews, you would get a very mixed review of this record. The AP Revolver debuted in 1969, was pressed by Toshiba, and some people believe it's superior to the EAS series, while again, others feel no need to add it to the collection if you already have an EAS. This album was released with a fully laminated, thick cardboard sleeve with a green arrow obi, a lyric insert, and some copies have a black inner sleeve. Black inner sleeve. Very, very nice laminated cover. Thick. The cover to this album is one of the nicest that I've ever seen. It also has 2 compartments, if you can see that. Presumably one compartment for the album and one for the inserts. Does anyone know for sure? Drop a comment if you do. And here's the insert. No photos on this one. And again, we have Apple labels on black vinyl. All right, so immediately I noticed a huge improvement sonically. The bass is much more present. I'm actually hearing things that are buried in the EAS pressing. And even the guitars on Taxman, while they're very forward, they're just not as shrill. There's even more clarity in the vocals. It's just a much better experience than the EAS series. It's just less fatiguing, and you can even crank it up a little bit instead of reaching for the volume to try to save your ears. Good Day Sunshine and the rest of side 2 sounds fantastic. Again, the mix is just more balanced than the EAS, and the bass and drums are as clear as the vocals and the guitars. You'll notice more of what this album has to offer because there's not a bunch of sound hiding in the background. Another note on the AP pressing is, of the 3 series I'm reviewing, it might be the one with the least sibilance on the vocals. So if sibilance is a deal breaker for you, the AP series might be right up your alley. An AP Revolver in VG Plus will reasonably set you back $35 or so on the low end, but can quickly jump to $50 or more, just depending on where and when you snag one. Surprisingly, not much more than an EAS, and if you find a deal, maybe even less. Okay, last but not least, the Odeon series. I think it's safe for me to say that many collectors of Japanese Beatles vinyl consider the original Odeon series to be the creme de la creme. I was very excited to spin this record. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first pressing from 1966. It comes on red translucent vinyl. These records were pressed by Toshiba, who used the Odeon label for their Beatles vinyl. Toshiba called the vinyl Everclean from 1958 through about 1974. The red vinyl pressings are more sought out by collectors than their black vinyl counterparts, and Everclean vinyl was designed to be less prone to collecting static electricity and dust than more common black vinyl. There it is, a 1966 first press, Odeon on red translucent, Everclean vinyl in full 4K goodness. I'm trying to play it cool, but in reality, I'm geeking out a little bit. Here's your insert. And inner sleeve. The inner sleeve is nice, even though it's paper, it's like a semi-gloss paper. And the jacket is just unbelievably cool. With this laminated, thick cardboard stock. All right, so that's all well and good, but how does it measure up against the AP and EAS series? All right, this album sounds phenomenal. Yes, it's an original pressing, so it was pressed when the master tapes were fresh. That cannot be overlooked. And it has some characteristics that other first pressings have over their successors. And the only way to describe it is that it's just punchier. This pressing is well balanced across all frequencies. The bass and drums are tight and punchy. The vocals are clean and present. I feel like even tiny variations in volume are present that just make the vocals seem more natural. I may be imagining that, but if I am, I think it's due in part to the fact that this mix is just so pleasant to listen to. However, there is slight sibilance on some of the vocals, which is a tiny bit disappointing. It could potentially be groove damage on my copy, but my guess is that is not the case. But overall, everything just sounds fresh and clean and just the way I imagine this record is supposed to sound. At the time of this recording, the cost of an original Odeon Revolver in VG Plus runs from about $70 and up and can easily run well over $100. All right, I still need to tell you how you're gonna save 10% the next time you buy some great records, but to sum up with my review of Revolver Japanese pressings, I can confidently recommend each and every one of these records based on the price point that you are most comfortable with. You shouldn't feel pressured into buying an original Odeon unless you're comfortable spending a little more and don't wanna mess with good enough. You want the absolute best. The EAS is typically the most affordable choice, and it sounds fine, but can get fatiguing fast, which I'm noticing now more than ever, having listened to all three of these records so critically. If you can live with the brightness of the EAS pressing, then you're good to go. The AP series beats out the EAS by a fair margin for being more balanced throughout the frequency spectrum. It doesn't suffer from the same dominant top end that the EAS does. It is just fantastic. But the top spot possessed by the AP pressing was short-lived because the crown goes to the original Odeon pressing. It's just so balanced, tight and punchy. The vocals sound great, although there is the tiniest bit of sibilance in some of the vocals on my copy, so if sibilance is a deal breaker, go for the much more affordable AP series. Although I believe everything else about the Odeon pressing is superior to the competition. Okay, I want to thank Meon Records, truly my favorite record store on the planet, for sponsoring today's video. The reason I think they're the best is because they have a massive inventory of amazing vinyl. Their shipping is lightning fast. Their packaging is second to none. You know the feeling you get when you unbox a new Apple product for you Apple users. That's the only thing I can compare to opening a box of records from Meon. They just take every single measure and precaution to ensure that you receive your records swiftly and in perfect condition. And for a limited time, you are gonna save 10% by entering promo code SPINS in the promo box at checkout. So go treat yourself to some great records, and don't forget you have that 10% in your back pocket. Thanks for watching my shootout of the Beatles Revolver Japanese pressings. I hope you feel better informed to make that critical decision when pulling the trigger on the Revolver pressing that you wanna add to your collection. Please feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts, or to, respectfully, tell me what I got wrong in the comment section below, and also let me know what other shootouts you want to see. If you like this video, then you'll probably like one of these videos. I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing. There is a ton of content where this came from and a ton of great stuff still to come. Not to mention, I am constantly running giveaways and discount codes. You cannot go wrong with a subscription to Spins Vinyl. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.